On today's episode, Dr. Liz and I welcome Dr. Paul Jenkins to the show, and he takes us on a wonderful journey through his positivity model, explaining the mind's constant engagement with two processes, evaluation and creation. He shares how these processes can encourage couples to feel grateful for what is, while intentionally creating something even better. From his BB-8 hack to his gratitude power-up, buckle up for this insightful and inspiring episode with Dr. Paul. Dr. Paul Jenkins is a professional psychologist, author, speaker, and positivity expert with more than 25 years of experience. He's the host of Live on Purpose Radio and the author of Pathological Positivity and Portable Positivity. Through his engaging, practical approach, Dr. Paul helps people better understand their minds and apply powerful psychological principles to create happier, healthier lives and relationships. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast. I'm Dr. Dave here at Utah State University alongside Dr. Liz Hale, our therapist and co-host. We're aiming to bring you the very best that we have in research and resources, along with a few tips and tools to help you create the marriage of your dreams. Okay, Liz, this is, I think, a first for us here on the podcast. I feel like my twin has joined us on the podcast as far as the excitement about positive psychology and positivity and happiness and mindfulness. This is going to be a thrill. It's going to be a 6-hour show. We're so excited to. No, I wish we had that long. But we're joined by Dr. Paul Jenkins. He, I think, enjoys this area as much or more so than me, this area of positivity. Cannot wait to dive into this. Welcome to the show, Dr. Paul Jenkins.
Oh, thank you. I don't think we're twins, though. That position's already occupied by my twin sister.
No kidding.
Do you really have a twin?
I totally have a twin.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so sorry, Dave. She beat you to it.
Yeah, she did.
But, you talk about enthusiasm about positivity. I've shaped my whole career around this. Well, the latter part of my career. I started out in traditional psychotherapy. And I even did yuck work for like 15 years. And
what's that?
What is yuck work, Liz? Is that what?
Yeah, what is yuck work?
I used to do child custody evaluations for the court.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. Now you get it. I mean, bitter, angry, divorcing people who can't figure out how to share their kids.
Darn.
But I learned so much.
Everybody suffers, right? Everyone suffered.
Yeah. And everybody's got a story. And but I learned through that there are principles that allow us to create and live a life that we love, regardless of our circumstances.
Yeah. Wow, Paul. Can you maybe just give our listeners the 30,000 foot view of you and kind of the bigger picture before we dive in granular with some of the stuff you do? But yeah, give us a little snapshot of Dr. Paul.
So I already mentioned a little bit about my history as I started out in clinical psychology as a therapist, and I had a busy outpatient child and family practice primarily. And if you come back with me to that point, and this is like 2 decades ago, I'm busy. You can't even get an appointment with me for weeks. I've got a waiting list and negative cash flow.
Wow.
And that was going on for like 2 quarters in a row. By the kind of math I do now, that's not sustainable.
Yeah, it doesn't work well. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there wondering, what's going on? What's the problem? To make a longer story short, chapter 1 in my book, Pathological Positivity, is titled Lightning Strikes. And this was my lightning strike moment. You're going along and doing life as you'd planned it, and then suddenly, boom, out of nowhere, you're struck by a thunderous bolt of lightning. And for me, it was a bankruptcy. One of my clients told me this, and I've always remembered it. There are 2 kinds of people on the planet. And I'm interested. I'm a psychologist. I'm like, tell me more. And he says, there are those who are humble, and there are those who are about to be.
Oh, man.
Does that resonate?
That will do it in a hurry, huh?
And this was my moment where I was humbled. And sometimes the doctor has to be the patient. My life circumstances had humbled me to the point where I was open. And you know how when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I've been running my podcast, Live on Purpose Radio, since 2007. And that's before all this. That's before podcasting was even a thing. And one of my guests was the incomparable Mary Louise Zeller. I don't know if you've heard her name before, but well into her 80s, she's a 6th-degree black belt in Taekwondo. This grandma can kick you the next Thursday. And I'm interviewing Mary Louise. She knows a little bit about my situation because I'm just getting into it at that point. And she said this. Paul, the troops are not coming. Then she paused, she let that sink in, and then we are the troops. And it was like a weight. She might as well have kicked me. I'm glad she didn't. That would have really hurt. But this was my lightning strike experience that humbled me to a point that I was open. And her kickstart got me on a path of exploring, wait a minute, do I really believe all of this psychobabble that I'm spouting off to my clients? Does it apply to me? I knew it here. I didn't know it here yet, in my heart and my soul. And that's where I discovered and began to build out a model of positivity. You hear it all the time, right? Just think positive, which is so annoying. I mean, depending on who's saying it. But getting past the trite, fluffy, motivational speaker versions of that into the science behind it, I was able to identify through my own painful experiences, here are the principles that are not dependent on our circumstances. And it just opened up a whole new path for me. I made a shift from traditional psychotherapy to positive psychology coaching for individuals, families, organizations. And it's been quite a journey, and it continues, obviously, but that's a couple of decades ago now that happened for me. So that's a little context about where I am. I haven't done therapy. I was telling Liz just before we went on the mic. It's been 15 years since I did traditional therapy. And now, I do a lot of speaking. I've written a couple of books. I've got a podcast and a YouTube channel, and just trying to get these principles out because they save lives. And interestingly enough, relationships.
Yes. And I love that, Paul, because some of our listeners today are thinking, you know what, Dave, why are we, I thought this was a podcast about marriage and relationships and stuff. And man, so Paul, when I present, and I've shared this on this, the podcast as well, that happy, healthy, we starts with a happy, healthy me, like individually. That's foundational. And so for those listeners making that connection, has everything to do with relationships, because it spills over. That ripple is real. What's your take, I guess, on the positivity and how it ripples into relationships?
Well, what you just said really resonates with me. My son just became a pilot for United Airlines.
Oh, wow.
Which was really sweet for us, because if they've got an open seat, we can travel.
Yeah.
And you'll notice when you get on an airplane, there's this little routine they go through as they're taxiing out before they take off. The safety, right? You're supposed to follow along on your laminated card. Who does? But there's a part where they talk about the oxygen masks. coming from the ceiling. And they always mention some version of, if you're traveling with someone who needs assistance, young children or whatever, put your own mask on first. Because if you're out cold in the aisle, you're part of the problem.
Not much help.
Yeah.
Right. You're not helping anybody. And now they got to worry about this unconscious person. And to me, that's a compelling analogy for what we're talking about here, because the person you bring to the relationship matters.
Absolutely.
And if you're all stressed out, I mean, I see this all the time. You know, people go to work and they're like, I hate my job. I hate my boss. This sucks. Then they go home and yell at their spouse and kick their dog. It's making it worse, not better. So we start internally. And I mentioned earlier that I have a YouTube presence where a lot of our content there over the last decade has been positive parenting. And I've often said that parenting is the number one personal development program on the planet.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Dr. Lily DeHoyo Sanderson, she's here at Brigham Young University in my county. I was interviewing her on my show, and she said the number one product of positive parenting is the parent.
Yeah.
And if we translate that over to a marriage or a couple situation, to improve that relationship, the best thing you can do is improve yourself, which also improves the relationship. And you learn so much in a marriage that you didn't know about yourself. Some of the things you didn't want to know about yourself. So I don't know if that fully answers your question.
Yeah,
Dave,
love it. Totally aligns. Yep.
Very important.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
We're eager to hear more about your model, the positivity model. Paul, you describe it as an instruction manual for operating the equipment of your own mind. I love the sound of that. Okay, so what are the major components of the positivity model, please?
Thank you for asking that question. You know, when people hear instruction manual for operating the equipment, we're locked inside of our own head, right? And it's really important to understand how things are operating in there, because awareness precedes choice. Now think about that for a minute. Until you become aware that you've got some choice, you don't. And you just roll with whatever your programming is. And programming is really strong. So the model is an attempt to identify two processes that are going on in your mind all the time. You can't turn them off. It's kind of like gravity. You ever get up in the morning and think, oh, I wonder if gravity's on today?
Yeah.
It tends to be, right? So understanding that has you not running off of cliffs. So to understand these principles allows you to operate the equipment not only safely, but also efficiently to accomplish what you intend. And either we drive our thoughts or our thoughts drive us. So the components of the model, and this is so cool. You guys can probably relate to this. My job is to illuminate the obvious. We get paid to tell people things they already know. But there's obvious things that are unnoticed until they're brought to your attention. Okay, like the feeling of your clothing on your body. Can you feel it now?
Mm-hmm.
Now. But before I mentioned it, you were oblivious to it. Or the fact that we're speaking English. Anybody notice? Again, obvious, but not noticed until it's called to your attention. So that's the realm that we're in when it comes to our thoughts. So the first component, I invite you to notice this. that you are constantly judging. Aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now it becomes obvious as we talk about it. You're judging yourself, your performance, your appearance. Sometimes we judge ourselves pretty harshly. But we're also judging our spouse, our circumstances, our finances, our home, our children. We judge our community, the economy, the government, the weather. You're judging me. It's cool. I'm judging you. Right? So noticing that, check this out. Evaluation. I use the word evaluation in my model. Okay? Because it's less judgy than judgment. But it's the same thing. Evaluation, our brain's main jobs are twofold: to keep us safe and to prove us right. And both of those get in our way all the time. But to keep us safe, our brain has to be constantly monitoring, judging, evaluating our environment to see if it's safe or dangerous, to see if it's good or bad, to see if it's difficult or easy. That's our brain's job. So the word evaluation implies comparison with some standard. And when I do programs for educators, they're all like, oh yeah, there's a standard, right? And that's what they measure their students' progress against or their own performance. So where's the standard? If you don't have a standard, you'll make one up. And you got a really good imagination. So let me demonstrate how this works. And this goes back a couple of years. I was giving a keynote at the youth leadership session for the National Speakers Association in Orlando. And just before I was to give my presentation, I was listening to Jeannie Robertson. If you've never heard of her, go look her up on YouTube. She's since passed away, but she is the funniest G-rated, family-friendly comedian on the planet. Thick Southern accent, 6'2". This lady is a hoot. And I'm in the session on the front row with Jeannie when I get a text message. Now, if you know anything about Jeannie, you don't get out your phone and start scrolling through text, especially if you're on the front row. She'll call you out. You become part of the show. So I didn't pull my phone out, but I got a little notification on my watch. You know, the little brief version that tells you who it's from and the first line or so? And it was from my sister, and it said, I wanted you to know that Talon had an accident last night. He was on his annual first responder TIMP weekend and slipped and fell off of a 30-foot ... Okay, Liz, why did you say, oh my?
Yeah, what's coming? 30-foot cliff, 30, what? What's coming?
Yeah.
Think of the worst. Accident. Mm-hmm.
Well, we all know ... means there's more. But you don't get it here. You have to go to your phone. I'm not going to go to my phone. I don't want to have that conversation with Jeannie. Right. But this, all I can think about is this little family. Talon is married to my niece. And it was her mom, my sister, that sent me this text. And I'm like, oh no. My own father lost his dad in an accident when he was only 5. A good friend of mine crashed his plane down here in Utah Lake, leaving his wife and family without a husband and father. And this is going through my mind. And this, I'd like to invite everyone who's listening here. This is our story with my details, because we've all got that text or some version of it, right? So fast forward just a few minutes to when Jeannie wraps up And I'm not going to get up and leave either. She was almost done. But if you walk out, she's got a conversation with you all the way. Did I offend you? You know, it's just like, so I just sat there, chilled out. Now I'm going to go make a phone call. But first, I'm going to check the text, the full text on my phone. I'll pick you up where we left off. Slipped and fell off a 30-foot waterfall and broke both of his ankles, seriously injured his knee. They could use your prayers. Okay, how are you feeling now?
Well, relieved to know what happened.
Yeah. He's on. He's okay.
And I heard that breath, Dave. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I was so relieved.
Yeah.
And can I invite you to notice that so were you?
Yep.
You're not pretending to be relieved. You feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so going to the model, here's what our brain is doing. And I've got a little visual here, and I've got a visual that I can provide to anybody who's just getting the audio version of this. We've got a free download of my mini book. We can share that in a minute if you want. But in the visual model, it is what it is. Okay, so that's where we're starting. And what it is 2 compound fractures, both ankles. All right? It is what it is. Now, what is our brain doing? It's evaluating it. It's judging it. It's asking, is this good or bad? I don't know. What are we going to compare it to? Now, in the story, before I gave you the rest of the text, I shared with you what my brain was doing. Okay? Can you imagine anything better than 2 broken ankles?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not hard,
Yeah.
right? I was teaching a group of police leadership up in Wyoming last month, and some guy pipes up, 1 broken ankle. I'm like, trust the cop to come up with that. Yeah, but arguably that would be better, right?
Yeah.
That's not where my brain was like, how about no accident?
No accident at all. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
My sister texts me that he's fallen off of a 30-foot ... I didn't know what it was going to be, but I'm like, hey, it would be so much better if he hadn't fallen off of a 30-foot ...
No.
And so, and I'm also thinking about, my dad and my friend who crashed his plane. So when we take what it is and we compare it in our mind to something better, how do we feel about what it is? Compared to something better, this sucks. It really, see, the point is, you're always right about how you feel. How you feel is 100% consistent with the way your mind is doing this. Now, I read you the rest of the text. And we were imagining in our mind what? What can you imagine anything worse than 2 broken ankles?
Yeah, that's where my mind went.
Yeah. I helped you with that because I'd shared with where my mind went. And so when we find out, it's only 2 broken ankles. I mean, think of how ridiculous that sounds without the whole context. Are you feeling good about this outcome?
Better.
It could have been a lot worse.
I mean, what is wrong with us? We're 2 broken ankles. We're feeling good about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because compared to something worse, we're feeling pretty good about what we've got. So we start in evaluation mode where our first thoughts go to judgment or evaluation. And it's what our brain's supposed to do. It's designed to do that. And if we compare what we've got to something better, we're going to feel worse about what we've got. If we compare what we've got to something worse, we're going to feel better about what we've got. And notice it's still painful, still challenging, still difficult, but compared to something worse, I'll take this, thanks. Okay, so that's the first component. And that matters because we're not done yet. We're going to move from evaluation mode to another process that we can't turn off, and that is creation. Creation of what is to be. Your brain is constantly working on this. And I'm not going to get into the whole creation process. There's a 6-part process that I do in full day trainings. But the creation mode starts with imagination of what is coming. And we don't know. We're guessing, right? We're imagining it. So connect with the emotional side of this for a minute. When we imagine or predict or expect or anticipate that what's coming is even worse than what we already have, how do we feel?
Anxious and fearful and awful.
Yeah. And Dr. Dave, you nailed it right there, because anxiety, this is anxiety. When we imagine that what's coming is worse. And it can be fear, apprehension, but it's some variety or brand of anxiety. Well, how do we feel when we imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even better than what we've already got? Ding, ding, ding. This is hope. That's the way I label it. Okay, hope. And hope is the number one preventative factor for suicide. Because hopelessness is the number one risk factor. And that's why this saves lives. But guess what? Your relationship, let's just take the model and apply it a little bit here. Your relationship is going somewhere. And what you imagine or anticipate or expect becomes a blueprint that you give your mind to go create it, because you've got something to do with it. But the emotional energy, when we start in evaluation mode, the biggest challenge that I've faced through my clinical career and still in my coaching career is to get people here to a positive evaluation of what it is, the way it is, without changing anything. Because that creates the energy that we then take to the creation game. Let me give you a couple examples, since this is the Stronger Marriage Connections podcast. How many times, and Liz, you can probably relate to this too, how many times does a couple come into a clinical office and one of them is dragged in kicking and screaming? The other one is coming in saying, things have to improve. Things have to get better.
Right. All the time.
See, making things better is a creation project. And so if someone's in creation mode and they're focusing on what could be better, they're feeling like, okay, we can go improve this. Oftentimes, the other person in that couple is in evaluation mode. And they're thinking, how am I doing? And if my spouse is dragging me in to see a shrink, the message they're getting is, you're not good enough. A very negative energy. And so both people are operating somewhere in this model. And meanwhile, the other spouse is saying, what? You don't know how good you've got it. Okay, that's an evaluation statement saying, hey, things are actually pretty good here. Well, that makes the other person really nervous, anxious, because it sounds like we're not going to improve. So using the model as a template, we can help couples or teams to understand how that dynamic is working. And the trick is we start here with a positive evaluation. We make peace with what it is. And from there, we take that energy to the creation game. Now, I've given you a really quick overview of the model and the components of it. And obviously, we could dig into or flesh out any of those in more detail, but that'll give you a little sense of what it's all about.
I'm never going to forget 2 broken ankles.
Yeah.
What could be better? What could be worse?
You know, when I said, can you imagine anything worse? That same cop, 3 broken ankles.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
That's right.
That's funny. Of course he did. That's
He was just messing around.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Oh, that's great.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Wow. It's fascinating, Paul. I learn all kinds of stuff, taking notes as you're talking about this. Let me ask you this. I think one of the pushbacks against positivity and positive psychology in the last 25 years is this idea of toxic positivity, right? Can you help us set the record straight? How is healthy positivity different from toxic positivity or avoidance, or simply putting a positive spin on serious relationship concerns?
For me, the distinction really comes down to, what are we doing with reality? In toxic positivity, there's almost a denial of reality, or a minimizing of real pain, real difficulty. It's like paste on a smile and pretend everything's peachy. That's toxic positivity, the way I would define it. And it is so dismissive of people's actual realities. So the difference, and the title of my book is Pathological Positivity. Sounds like the same thing. It's not. It's a very different approach, because I think in true positivity, we accept and make peace with what it is, the reality, no matter what it is. Because what's our alternative? Either our heart's going to be at peace, or our heart's going to be at war with things the way they are right now. That's not a denial of reality. It's making friends with, or making peace with, reality. The only reason that distinction is so important is because that's all we got. Now, I'm not saying it's all we could have. That's what creation mode's all about. But we're not going there yet. What it is all we got. The way it is, without changing it, it is here, it is now, it's what we've got. So making peace with that doesn't solve all the problems. It puts us in position to solve the problems with our amazing creative mind. So, positivity, when people really understand it, it's about operating the equipment of our mind in the context of whatever our circumstances are. And that sounds really bold, but you know what? Going into my 4th decade of clinical practice now, you can't shock me. I have heard some of the darndest crap you can imagine. And so any couple can come in and share whatever's going on for them. And I'm like, oh, it's like, okay. It's like, nothing tips me over. Nothing shocks me. And that's helpful for them, because their circumstances are extraordinary to them. But with my context, I'm like, I've heard worse. I mean, I've seen murder, incest, abuse, infidelity, organized crime. I mean, I've seen so many examples of how it could be worse. I go home every day from my old clinical practice. This is especially in those early years. And I would just feel so grateful for my life, my marriage. My marriage is the best marriage I know of. And that's by choice that I see it that way. See, because we have a choice. Awareness precedes choice. So there's a couple of juicy little ideas. Did that answer your question, Liz? Because you're asking about toxic positivity, and I think that can hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
If we try to deny reality, I think we need to make friends with reality and then move forward and create the upgrade.
Make friends.
Yeah.
And as we do that, going back to our relationships, how can spouses become more intentional about noting and communicating what is good in their partnership and the marriage?
That's exactly where it starts, actually. What if we were to notice and focus on, because what we focus on, we feel, and what we think about, we bring about. What if we were to notice and focus on what's good, what's going well? And sometimes I give couples a little challenge. And they're eager, especially whoever set the appointment is eager to let's get to the upgrade here. Let's go improve things. My biggest challenge as a coach is to get them to believe, understand, wrap their heads and hearts around the fact that they don't need an upgrade. That there's one available. I'll totally get behind the upgrade. But they don't need one. They're already doing better than so many other couples. And they don't always believe that, because we have, in my book, I call this the special case syndrome. We all really believe in our heart of hearts that we are a special case. You know, we can see that these principles apply generally, you know, to people, but somehow my circumstances are extraordinary. My relationship is different in some special ways from all those others. And we do it in a way that creates a negative energy. So the starting point, let's go to gratitude. Here's the hack. I call it the gratitude power up. And I will ask a couple, and I'm asking you, anyone who's listening, take this on, try this. Come up with, here's the numbers, 25, 5. 25, well, 5 meaning 5 days, starting today. Come up with a list of 25 aspects or items or features of your marriage, your relationship that you are sincerely grateful for. And don't repeat anything on tomorrow's list that was on today's list. Whole new list tomorrow. Most people, when they do a gratitude list, they pick all of the easy stuff. You know, like health and rainbows and puppies and indoor plumbing. Anybody can be grateful for the easy stuff. In your marriage, especially if there are some conflicts or turmoil or discontent going on in your marriage, that's where we're going to apply this. Pick your marriage or your spouse. Okay, marriage or spouse. What am I grateful for in my marriage right now? The way it is, without changing a thing. What am I grateful for in or about or from my spouse? And this isn't aspirational. It's not like, well, if things were different. No, the way it is right now. This is powerful because it changes the energetic flow of the relationship. And I've seen it save lives as well as relationships. That's called the gratitude power up. And I always start with that.
Nice.
I've had a few couples fired me after that.
Yeah, they didn't need you after that.
They're like, oh, we're good.
Yeah.
Now, there's still an upgrade available. Okay. But what we're doing is energetically, we're getting in a position where we can actually create it. You know, one of my sons chose to do a full-time mission for our church. He's gone for 2 years. He came home. He's like 21 years old when he gets home and he wants to buy a car. And he has no work history. He's got no credit. He's a ghost in the system. Right. So I take him down to Mountain America Credit Union down here on 8th, where I've banked since 1984. And we sit down with a loan officer and she's all excited to help. She's typing in his information. And she gets this dark look on her face as she looks at my son and says, "I'm really sorry. You don't qualify for this loan." And it was only like $3,000 to buy an old beater car. This is like 25 years ago. And so I throw my hat in the ring, right? I'm like, how about if I co-sign on that? And she's like, "Oh, great idea." So she starts entering my information. She gets an even darker look on her face. And she turns to me and says, "Sir, that makes it worse." You remember the bankruptcy?
Oh,
yes. Oh, darn it.
Yeah, I had a big black eye on my credit report. I don't even qualify for 5 cents. So I
But you've been a customer since 1984, Paul.
yeah, come on.
didn't matter.
Oh,
But
shoot.
I gave her another option. I reach into my jacket. I pull out $3,000, put it on the table, slide it over next to her. I said, "What if I give you the $3,000 to lend my son, and then you let me co-sign on the note because we both need to build our credit? How's that sound?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, we can give you good rates on that." But here's what I learned, okay? And this is a paradox. And I love psychology because there's paradoxes everywhere. This one is, you can get the loan as soon as you prove you don't need the money. Is that true at the bank? If you desperately need it, you're too big a risk. They won't lend you money. But I proved to her, I don't need the money. Give me the loan. And she's like, "Oh, okay." I have found that is true. That's what I've discovered in working with hundreds of couples over the years. That those who really connect with, we're good the way it is right now without changing anything. Now, I know that there's problems. Yeah. Welcome to the planet. Who doesn't have problems? But getting energetically in a place where you can connect to, here's what's good, here's what's working, here's what I'm grateful for, puts you in a whole different starting place. And from that place, we can go create upgrades. There are principles. It's not even guesswork. We know how to improve marriages. And starting energetically from that place of gratitude, instead of "this sucks," it's a whole different ballgame. So you can improve your marriage as soon as you realize you don't have to. It's good the way it is. Find the good. And the gratitude power up is the way that I invite people to explore that first.
Is that related to the positivity power up then? I mean, is it kind of the similar principles you're talking about, Paul?
Well, the positivity power up specifically is a course that I've done to help people learn the model. And I'm going to give you that too, because everybody who's watching, you can get a free download of my mini book that breaks down the model step by step. And I'll mention the link. We'll put it in the show notes too, but it's drpauljenkins.com, spelled with a DR. drpauljenkins.com/SMC, which are just random letters that I picked.
Yeah, that's right.
But very conveniently, it also stands for Stronger Marriage Connection.
Yeah. Funny how that happened.
How lucky.
Yeah.
Right?
How lucky. So lucky.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, man.
I can imagine worse initials.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It
could always be worse. You know, I get myself in trouble with that too, because after a speech or a training or something, and people are coming up to me afterwards, and I'll be like, "So how was it for you today?" And they're like, "Well, it could have been worse." And then I know that they got it.
Yeah.
And they did, yeah.
Yeah, it could have been worse.
So, Paul, what is one practical exercise or maybe even habit that couples could begin using right now to create a more positive emotional climate in their marriage?
Ooh. You know, I shared with you the gratitude power up. Absolutely that one. But here's another one that is so helpful because it gets us on a practical wavelength. And I call this one BB-8 because I'm kind of a Star Wars fan too. There's a little droid in Star Wars called BB-8. But if you'll just remember those initials, how sure are you that 8 o'clock is coming? Pretty darn sure. Yeah. And how sure are you that you'll be around for 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
And this is where it's funny that people hedge on that one, but you've got 100% track record. You've made it to every 8 o'clock so far your whole life.
So far, so good, right?
Yeah.
So far, so good. So probably you're going to be around for 8 o'clock. I know you could get hit by a random bus or something, but probably not today. So think about your marriage for a minute and ask yourself this question. What could I do to make my marriage a little worse before 8 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did you notice your mind gave you some options?
Oh, yeah.
There are so many ways to make it worse. Please don't do this. The initials are BB8, not WB8. So better by 8. Now ask that same creative mind, what could I possibly do to make this marriage better by 8? Now notice what's happening here. We're not talking next week, next month, next year. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Okay, so that brings our scope down significantly. And it could be a little better or a lot better. It's totally up to you. But something that you could do between now and 8. Now, what's your brain doing? Do you see? I just invited you into creation mode. So the gratitude power up is an evaluation strategy. Okay, getting clear about what am I grateful for right now in this marriage without changing anything. Better by 8 is a creation strategy. And it gives you a task that you can do in the next few hours. And it doesn't have to be huge. Usually it's not. But I've got a garden out here. I just picked some tomatoes this morning. And those tomatoes require a lot of water, but not all at the same time. You know, I couldn't just go out there and dump a big bucket on that tomato seed and hope for the best. It would have washed away. It wouldn't have grown. I've been giving it a little water regularly. And over time, this plant has grown and it's producing some really nice little fruit for me now. So in a similar way, better by 8, BB8. Do this for the next 5 days. And there's 2 8 o'clocks every day. If you don't get up early, that's important to note. If you do it for the next 5 days, along with the gratitude power up, you get to have 10 upgrades to your marriage. And this can be applied in any context, but we're talking about marriage here today. And notice we haven't even invited your spouse to do it. What if you both got enrolled? What if you both listen to the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast? What if you both do the gratitude power up? What if you both do the better by 8? Now we got 20 upgrades in 5 days. How awesome is that? Now, and what's the emotional feeling that comes with it? Hope. Because you will start to see that seed sprouting and growing because you're watering it every day. You don't just go to the seminar and hope for the best. That'd be like dumping the bucket of water on it. So from a very practical standpoint, Liz, you know, as you're asking, what can we do to apply this right now? What can a couple do? Do this. Start here. And there's always more. There's always more that you can do.
Always more.
Yeah.
But my favorite line, as Dave knows, is whatever you focus on grows, right? You have a wealth of resources, dear Paul. Well, we could go on and on. Okay, let's share again with our listeners where they can find out about you and your resources, the portable positivity, the little mini book, how to get access.
I'd say go there first because this, just step by step, I just break down that model that I shared with you here today. And so you can really get a handle on, okay, here's the owner's manual, the operating instructions. for the equipment. Awareness precedes choice. So that puts you in a whole different position. And we want to get your thoughts working for you, not against you, and for your marriage, not against it. And let's be honest, some of the thoughts are not helping your marriage, are they?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's where I would start. And then obviously the podcast, Live on Purpose Radio.
Live on Purpose. Okay, Live on Purpose Radio. Oh, we've heard that. Yeah,
if you remember, Live on Purpose. And I've got a brand new platform that we're launching a little later in August. We're doing this recording in early August. Late August 2026, we're launching the new Positives platform. And that's where we're providing some of the sprinkling for you, okay, for every day. Daily, weekly, monthly positives. And you can find that at positives, plural, .life, which is what we're trying to improve. So positives.life. If you want to check that out, I've got a free positivity power pack for you there. And it includes a download of the mini book too. So if you'd rather go there, that's a way to power it up a little quicker as well.
Nice. We're going to add all that to our show notes, drpauljenkins.com. And is that /SMC?
Yes.
Stronger Marriage Connection. Great.
And that's for the free download of the mini book, just for listeners of this show.
You're so generous. Thank you. Can't wait to get my own copy.
Yes.
Yes. Enjoy.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Man, Paul, this has been incredibly helpful. I'm actually going to re-listen to this episode so I can take more notes and then jump on your website for more information and so much power packed into this one episode. We sure appreciate you coming on. Before we let you go, we have a couple of questions we like to ask all of our guests. First one is, what do you feel like is I don't know the key, but a key to a stronger marriage connection?
That one word always pops into my head, and it's love, which I view as a choice and a verb more than a feeling or an emotion. I think we get to choose love or hate. And I use the word hate because people hate the word hate. But honestly, if it's not love, what is it? And I don't think we can be neutral. I think it's going to be either a little or a lot on one side or the other. And choosing love. For you to do these two brain hacks that we talked about today, the gratitude power up and the better by 8, those are both love choices. You can see that if we have to choose which side of the spectrum it's on. Choose love. I think that's the key.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And what about a takeaway of the day? Is there a take-home message you hope our listeners will remember from our discussion today, Dr. Paul?
The key for me is choice. And I just mentioned choose love, choose positivity, the way that we've talked about it. It's not just ignoring the reality. In fact, it's embracing, making friends, and making peace with reality. And from that place, we can move forward powerfully to create. Until we see it as a choice, it's not. And that's why I'm on this campaign to illuminate the obvious, to show people that they have a choice. And then what they do with it is up to them. I'm not here to tell you how to think. I don't have that kind of authority. I do invite you to see that you are thinking and that matters. It makes a difference in all of your outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Wow, powerful stuff. Liz, what's your takeaway of the day?
Yeah, choice was it as well. Dave, those nine powerful words. My marriage is the best marriage I know of. I think that's beautiful for all of us to take to heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's really lovely. Okay. And Dave, what about you, my friend? What's your greatest takeaway from our interview today with Dr. Paul Jenkins?
Yeah, I got all kinds of notes scrolled down here, Dr. Paul. Yeah, this awareness precedes choice. Just awareness of what you're talking about, then it provides more choices. The perspective, enlarges and I can see differently. But if you I don't act differently, you've got to see differently, and you got to be aware of what's happening. I love you talked about accepting what is right now. Yes, it may be awful, maybe two broken ankles, but yeah, accepting what is, and then we can see how the direction, what we want to do. And then we can get into that creation mode. So, man, this has been so helpful, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on today, sharing so much. We may have to have you on again sometime. This has been super helpful.
Well, if you twist my arm hard enough, I might agree.
Yeah, that's right. yeah, we could do it. We can do some twisting. Oh, all right, my friends. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode of the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast. We'll see you next time.
That's right. And remember, it's the small things that create a stronger marriage connection. Take good care now.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.